Live from the Export Beer Garden studios, you're listening to the BYC. And what the bloody hell is going on? This tournament is all over the place like a madman's excrement. First, the Afghanistanis pump the English. Then, for good measure, the Netherlands overcome the informed South Africans. Meanwhile, the men in yellow, one of the pre-tournament favourites, have limped to 2 losses out of 3. It's head-spinning stuff, but we can steady ourselves safe in the knowledge that our men in black sail steadily on, looking very much like a team under control and with a clear vision. It makes for fascinating viewing and gives us here at the BYC plenty to chat about. So let's get into it. And I'm looking at the screeds of pages here. Yep. Dylan Cleaver, a lot going on, but seriously, some massive upsets. Yep. What is going on?
And the crazy thing is, it's those couple of games where you think, oh, I might get a bit of sleep here.
Yes.
You know, the minnow plays the behemoth. It's a foregone conclusion. You wake up in the morning and go, holy hell, I'm going to have to go back and watch a bit of that, aren't I?
Yeah.
And, look, starting in Delhi, Afghanistan posting 284 against England, and England actually getting nowhere near it.
Thumped,
215, and we have a variation on Baz Ball, Paul Ford. We have Baz Ball.
Yeah, I'm happy with Baz Ball. I like that. And he was Baz balling away, although not really. I mean, he was actually, well, what was he? Was he 57 off 80 or was he 80 off 57? It was 80 off 57, wasn't it? It's not really an anchor. So, yeah, I'm happy with that.
So what's going on with the English side, do you think, fellas? I mean, obviously they started off the tournament playing us and got a resounding hiding. Is all well in the English camp, Dylan Cleaver?
I don't know. It looks like there might be a bit of bad juju.
Yes.
Like Ben Stokes hasn't played yet, so obviously he'll make a difference. But I feel like Joss Butler is their talisman, and he kind of looks a bit bereft.
Yeah, deflated,
defeated,
yes.
Yeah, a bit nonplussed. I can't quite work out what's going on. Chris Wokes, every time he bowls, just seems to either get thumped for 4 or 6. So that's not helpful. Just a really poor, unforeseeable start to the tournament. I mean, they have got time to turn around, but yeah.
They are one of those sides, though, Afghanistan, Paul Ford, that, you know, are always a potential banana skin, particularly in those conditions. But, you know, 99 times out of 100, you'd expect England to absolutely pound them.
And definitely. I mean, everything is in England's favour, really, in terms of resources, mindset. They're the defending world champs at 50 over cricket and T20. Afghanistan have won, I think, 1 game in the World Cup in the history of time, which was against Scotland 8 years ago. I mean, this is an absolute shocking result.
England won the toss.
Yes.
Monumental upset, humiliating. I think the only one worse than this was when Kenya beat the West Indies when was that, 20 years ago. I mean, Afghanistan have literally only won 1 match in the World Cup of all time. And as you said, Dylan, England just bowled the biggest pile of crap. And there was one of those magnificent moments where the first ball of the game set the tone. It was a massive leg side wide from Chris Wokes, which Butler got a glove to. It went through his legs and went for 4. And Wokes and Curran, 8 overs, none for 87, 9 4s and 4 6s. Diabolical from England.
I mean, the thing is, in every sort of World Cup tournament, you tend to have a game like this, a bit of a shock result. But in this one so far, we've had 2 absolute shockers. Controversially, and you've put this down here, fellas, should Afghanistan even be allowed to be playing?
Well, technically, no. You've got to have a women's cricket program.
Yes.
And the Taliban have made that very difficult, if not impossible, in Afghanistan, the way they run the country, obviously with Sharia, I think it is, Sharia law, and a very fundamental view of the Islam religion. So they shouldn't be, but I'm not sure either that it's fair to penalise an emerging nations and their cricket team because of what we consider the wrong-headedness of their government.
Yeah, your thoughts?
I'm penalising them. I don't think they should be there. I think it's a shambles. And, you know, the fact that the ICC and the BCCI, whoever controls cricket, they've got no balls, and they shouldn't have. They should have they shouldn't be there. I mean, they're basically endorsing it. The Taliban won't even let the people celebrate in the streets after they've won the cricket. I mean, what the hell? There was a great faux pas too from, was it a faux pas or was it a little bit of niggle? But either case, Jonathan Trott, the Bangladeshi coach, said, the Afghanistan coach said that he hoped that the World Cup win over England would encourage boys and girls to take up cricket, even though the Taliban will probably machine gun down any woman that starts to come in right arm over the wicket. I mean, it is massive hypocrisy. I mean, look at Australia, for example. They wouldn't even go to Afghanistan and play them. They withdrew from the series because of all this, we couldn't possibly go there and we're endorsing them. Oh, yeah, but we'll play them in the World Cup if we've got to beat them to get through to the top 4. Oh, shit, yeah. Totally available for that match.
Dead right, man.
Yeah.
It's a hot mess.
It's a horrific scenario, really, isn't it, what's going on there? And it is a really tricky one, I think, to get your head around. But no, maybe you're right. Maybe they shouldn't be there. If that's the way, Sharia law, as you're saying, the Taliban, brutal, horrendous human beings, we should ban them. Ban them all, I say.
That said, I do love Rashid Khan and his big dick energy. I mean, how magnificent is he? 3 for 37, trash talking the Englishman. He is an absolutely magnificent cricketer to watch. So don't get me wrong, I love watching them and I loved seeing them win.
Yeah, totally. Well, let's go on to the next upset, the Netherlands versus South Africa. And, we were mentioning in the previous podcast, South Africa looking pretty solid, pretty good. Some good victory over Australia. And, I was watching that match and the Netherlands, when they were batting, I think at one stage were like 110 for 6 or something. It never looked like they were going to post an amazing score. And somehow, and due primarily to sloppiness by the South Africans in the field, their fielding was shockingly bad. Yeah. They managed to find their way to 245 from recollection. Edwards getting the top score there. But even then you sort of felt, well, surely that's never going to be enough. But a wicket that was playing slightly up and down, batsmen playing the wrong line, a few skidders, and all hell broke loose for South Africa, Dylan Cleaver.
Yeah, another one where the favourites, South Africa, won the toss.
Yes.
Inserted the Netherlands in what was pretty tricky conditions. There was a lot of rain around Dharamshala. I wonder if the poor fielding, and it was Richard, from South Africa, was something to do with the outfield. I mean, it's got nothing to do with catching, obviously, but some of that ground fielding was so un-South African-like.
Yes.
They're normally outstanding there, but it was just dreadful. Scott Edwards, those one-handed sweeps that he takes from miles outside off stump and still sweeps them forward of square on the leg side, they were pretty spectacular. They got little contributions down the order. But my favourite cricketer in this match was Roelof van der Merwe, or Roelof of the wide water, if we translate it into English. And
the Bulldog.
He was just, his face went puce. There was just so much happening with him. Every time he took a wicket, that my eyes were immediately drawn to see how he was celebrating, and he never disappointed. Fantastic result. The Dutch bowled exceptionally, and there's a quote from Tinder Bavuma afterwards, which was kind of summed it up really when he said, from 112 for 6, shouldn't have allowed them to go past 200. We dropped the ball there, and he means that in more ways than one, but we're still confident with the chase. But they were able to extract some deficiencies in our batting, which is an interesting way of putting it, that they just cleaned them up. We could have controlled the extras. The fielding wasn't up to standard. We need to have some conversations with the boys. You got to let emotion seep in. It will hurt. Our campaign is not over by any stretch of the imagination, but that was a proper display for them, and it was a proper display from the Dutch.
Oh, and how stoked were they when they won it? And you're right, Roelof van der Merwe, he was highly pumped, wasn't he? On that front,
angry little man from Joburg. And don't forget that he was the guy when, less than a year ago in Adelaide during the T20 World Cup against South Africa, he was the guy that took that ridiculous catch, running away over his shoulder, diving into the sun and catching David Miller. And that was the day that they beat South Africa. And here he was again, haunting them, this angry little bulldog of a man, getting runs and wickets. Jace, you mentioned that partnership. They were 82 for 5, 110 for 6, 140 for 7 after 34 overs. And then Edwards, the Tongan-born rugby AFL-loving dude from Melbourne, was he a plumber or a courier or something? Van der Merwe and Dutt. They got 105 for 1 off the last 9 overs. Unreal.
Yeah. Great stuff. Exciting stuff. And does Logan van Beek have the best Wagner face outside of Wagner?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah,
he got a bit of punishment. He got what was it, 3 for 60 odd maybe?
Yeah, but his punishment came mainly at the end from Keshav Maharaj when they were
done and dusted.
Dead runs. Maharaj was just looking to get their net run rate, respectable. The 3 wickets is the important number in that column.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, what's your theory, fellas, on why these upsets are happening, Paul Ford?
Well, in terms of the Netherlands game specifically, I've got a couple of theories, but I think that the fact that it was rain shortened absolutely played into the men in orange's hands because, as we talked about previously on the podcast, this became not the same as a T20, but with compressed overs, they've only got 43 overs to lose their 10 wickets. So, I think that reduction in overs brought Netherlands closer to South Africa. And so when they were, 82 for 5, and I mentioned they were 140 for 7, they only had to survive 9 overs. So the slog's on. If they had to bat 50 overs, I'm not quite sure if they would have batted similarly. And then conversely, South Africa lost, I think they were 4 for 45 or something like that. So those early wickets, and then the pressure goes on, and then they don't have the full 50 overs to chase. So that's one. I think as well, just a genuine lack of muscle memory around players playing one-day international cricket. Like, if you look at the list, and I know that you wouldn't have, Jace, but if you looked at the list of players that have played the most games in 2023, I would be shocked if you said the name V. Aravind from the UAE is the player that's played the most one-day international games in 2023. Yeah, you might have known that, but I think probably not. Then it's Asalanka, then it's Mendes, then it's Khan from the UAE. These teams are playing more one-day international cricket than the big nations because the big nations are off. Their best players are not playing one-day international cricket hardly at all. And even the teams are playing less one-day international cricket than some of these smaller teams. So there's a couple of theories, plus big, juicy old complacency, I think, certainly.
Yeah. Dylan?
Yeah, that's my theory. We just don't play a lot of bilateral one-day cricket anymore, and the bilateral cricket they do play, you just look at the black tat teams that go to Bangladesh and places like that. They are second 11s, essentially. So they give all these players their time off, and one-day cricket's the one that suffers, and then when it comes to picking a World Cup squad, they still go back to the tried and true, your first 11, regardless of the fact that first 11's actually played bugger all competitive one-day cricket. They don't play a lot of Ford Trophy. The one-day cricket in your domestic competitions are the ones that suffer too from having no internationals available for them. So, that would be the one that I would lean on most heavily. Yeah,
well, there's a lot going on in a cricketer's mind these days. There's so many formats to the game. I think, you've got to maybe add into those theories too the pitches that they're playing on. It was very up and down, that pitch against, South Africa, the Netherlands. A lot of those balls skidding through, just things like that. It's turning a lot more. They're probably, if they were absolute belters like you would expect most one-day wickets to be, you'd say that the major sides would prevail in those situations. But when the pitches are a little bit tricky, a bit dicey, a bit up and down, that can also bring teams closer together. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's a good theory. And let's not forget, teams like England, they had one day, as I think it was, against Ireland. Their best players just didn't play it. You've got South Africa going, oh, no, we're not going to go play those one days in Australia. No, we can't be bothered. You've got Australia going, no, we're not going to Afghanistan. We're on our high horses here. So you do have, I totally get that the schedule's packed, but this is, isn't it amazing if results like this can happen? This is not meant to happen. Netherlands are not meant to be in this tournament. They are not meant to be winning games. That is not how the system has been set up. They are blowing this whole thing to pieces.
Waiting! Yeah, well, let's look at the big picture here because, of course, the Australians getting through over Sri Lanka, finally getting a win on the board, not without a few tense moments there. Dylan Cleaver lost quite a few early wickets.
Davey Dum threw a tantrum.
Yes, he did. Still, I think they won by with 88 balls and 5 wickets. But overall, big picture, these teams that are suffering the upsets aren't done and dusted yet, and we need to keep that in mind because we know how these filthy Australians, they'll probably still be there or thereabouts.
Yeah, so look, you play 9 games, right? Everyone's played 3, so we're only a third of the way through. It's a very extended thing, and I've gone for, I'm not sure what Paul's using, but I'm using the axiomatic probability theory here to say you probably need 5.5 wins. And obviously you can't get half a win, but you can get a no result, or that half a win could be having a superior net run rate to the team that's on the same amount of points as you. So New Zealand are by no means in yet, although if they do what they should do, which is to beat Afghanistan and to beat Sri Lanka, they'll be favourites in those games. I mean, anything could happen, but they will be favourites.
Yes.
If they do that, that gets them to 5 wins, so they need to conjure up a half win or a full win against India, Australia, South Africa and Pakistan, and I back the boys to do that.
Another point just too on the Afghanistan beating England, what it does is send a signal to the other teams, which is do not take us lightly. If you take us lightly, Paul Ford, there's an opportunity for us to maybe overcome you. So probably the best thing that could have happened for New Zealand. And I don't get the impression from this New Zealand side anyway that they count their chickens. I think that they respect every side that they play. And obviously have a clear vision, a clear game plan. So I think they'll be prepared and ready to go.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right. It's quite good when other teams are providing the shocks that wake up your team and make sure that they don't get complacent. I think our team is also, they're fighting for their place, and there's a lot of competition and I think that is helpful. Dylan, I'm pleased that I thought you were going to do your thing based on the John Forbes Nash game theory, but I assume you were going to sort of zero into that piece of thinking that he had around the desired outcome would always come by not deviating from your initial strategy, that sort of Nash equilibrium. But anyway, that's fine. You do it how you want to do it. I did it in a slightly simpler way. I looked at how many wins teams had to have in 2019. India had 7, Australia had 7, England had 6, New Zealand had 6. So New Zealand had 5 and Pakistan had 5, and New Zealand went through into the top 4 on net run rate. So your theory is sound, I think, but 5 being the minimum wins that you'd want. So, too early to count the chickens.
Yeah, I mean, geez, it's really difficult getting to this top 4 again, isn't it? In terms of who's going to be there. You'd like to think we're there. You'd like to think India are going to be there. But she's pretty dicey for the next 2.
There's going to be some incredible round-robin games coming up that maybe wouldn't have meant a lot if everything had played out the way we expected it to play out. But now Australia v England just takes on epic proportions.
Yes.
Yeah, if you think about what England have to do, and I haven't worked this out for all the teams, but I grabbed this. This is what England have to do. They have to beat Sri Lanka, they have to beat the Netherlands, and then they have to beat 3 of these teams: South Africa, India, Australia, Pakistan, and they probably need to have a good run rate. So, they're getting into the last chance saloon pretty quick.
Yeah, great stuff. We love to see it. Now, as previously mentioned, New Zealand versus Afghanistan, of course, the absolute shit has steadied the ship with that injury. They're saying, though, that he's going to be back maybe for the latter part of the tournament, so that's hopeful, Dylan Cleaver. Yeah. The likely 11, Conway, Young, Ravindra, Mitchell, Latham, Phillips, Chapman, Santner, Ferguson, Henry, Bolt. Are we happy with Chapman in there?
I'm not sure. It certainly gives you more comfort having a long batting lineup, and the way the guys are bowling, particularly your Henry and your Santner and your Bolts, you can probably get away with relying on them and having a longer batting lineup. But there needs to be a point soon where we say, okay, Southee and Sodhi there for the food bill and to make everyone feel good about themselves in the nets, or are they actually a functioning playing member of this team? And if they are, they have to play soon, I would have thought.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I kind of, I'm a big backer. I think Southee should be playing, but
is this going to be Ben Lister's not in the squad, Jason?
No, I know that. I know that. But I'm all for too in tournament situations. I don't like to see too much chopping and changing.
So you're happy for them to just sit on the sidelines?
I like the consistency of a unit playing together consistently over a period of time and not doing too much tinkering. And I think in many respects, that's been the strength of the New Zealand side, is they don't fart ass around too much in these situations. But what's your thought, Paul Ford?
Yeah, I think that you could make a case for Ish Sodi to play this game. I think there's a lot of speculation that it's not going to be the bouncy pitch that we had in Chennai. It's going to be more closely aligned to the one that the Australians got stitched up with against India. And so if this is the dark soil, I think it is, and
the black soil, yep,
it's going to spin. I'd be trying to find a place for Ish Sodi in there, and maybe Chapman is the guy that you sacrifice under that scenario. Does leave us a little bit more brittle in the batting, but got to take advantage of the conditions. So there's an option there, I guess. But I'm pretty comfortable with Chapman being in there, to be clear. I just think, it might be an opportunity to take advantage of the conditions in Chennai tonight.
And obviously there is one change. Will Young will come back into the 11 because of the injury to Kane Williamson. And here's him talking about this kind of roller coaster World Cup so far.
Yeah, as you say, it's been an interesting few days. It's never nice to be told you're on the drinks, but that was the case. And, it's something we talk about in this team. You've got to do those sort of things at times and get it right in behind the boys that are out there. And it was awesome to see Kane back out there, after what's been an amazing time, really, to come back from an ACL injury after 6 months and all the work and effort he's put in to get here, and then to get like the innocuous injury that, knock on his thumb like that. We're all gutted for him. But yeah, here I am, about to make centre again.
We're all gutted for him, but here I am.
Yeah. But here's my opportunity, goddammit. I mean, just on that, Kane Williamson coming back into the side, immediately, it just showed his class, didn't it? He's had this long injury run, gets runs against Bangladesh, looks just tickety-boo, and then that absolute shitter, getting a broken thumb.
Dylan's grabbing him, jabbing him, and getting him back out there in about 7 days, I think.
Yep.
So,
shove an injection in there, boys. Don't worry about it. Wrap it up. Come on, harden up. Hey,
Dr. Hoyte.
Looking pretty toasty in Chennai too.
Yeah, excessive heat warning.
Yes. You'd be hopeless in that scenario, Dylan. I could see you sweating up a storm.
I'm all right in excessive heat. I'm from Taranaki.
Old 40 and I probably would be fine because we're athletes, but you know what I'm saying?
It sounds like a great day to get the dad bods out, Jace.
Yeah, totally. Mate, I've been working hard at the gym. Don't you worry about that. Well, that's something to look forward to.
Really?
Waiting. Now, the Black Caps have an unofficial team song, and it's really bloody good.
That's gone for 6 again.
Welcome to Chennai. Captain Kane is back. Game's on while we sleep, but we will watch you come where Mitchell nor Ross Taylor. We win games without sandpaper. Everybody wants to.
Very good.
I think you know the fella, do you, Paul?
No, I don't, but I've done a bit of research. John Foley, I think it is, or Folty, or something like that. And he is a musician from a band called Lost Vessels, bit of a sound engineer. Like, I think he's been on tour with like Ben Harper and done lots of West Coast punk rock things in California and dive bars in Florida and all that kind of stuff. So, he's a bit of an absolute music weapon. So, great effort. It's one of my worst
journalism interviews of all time was with Ben Harper. We did not hit it off.
Oh, you want to know my worst ever interview?
Don't be fooled by that, that friendly visage that he carries around.
Yeah. My worst interview, without question, was Dylan Moran.
Oh, really?
The Irish comedian.
Oh, yeah,
it was an absolute shocker, and he's notorious for being a shocking interview. Yeah. He's so disinterested, and every question is no, yes, no.
It's admirable in one sense, but I can understand that would not feel great at your end.
Hey, there's been a bit of fallout with India and Pakistan. The PCB have made official complaints about treatment of players from the crowd. And we've mentioned this previously, a lack of visas for Pakistani officials and journalists, fellas. And they got a hiding.
Yeah, I mean, they've probably got a point about the visas. I don't know if you really, if you're playing in front of 100,000 people, you're 100,000 passionate Indian fans, you're going to expect a bit of jip from the crowd. Jeepers, they should go to the Wacker and listen to some of the stuff that used to come from the bank towards the New Zealanders.
I think the point they were making, though, is that it felt like a BCCI event.
Yeah, several have made that point, haven't they?
I think that is a good call. You know, when you go to the FIFA World Cup football that was here recently, like there was this real templated vibe to the games, which was awesome. Like, I'm not complaining about it, but it felt even-handed and it felt like you were at a global event. Whereas what Brad Byrne and Mickey Arthur, the coaching duo from Pakistan, was saying was that, you know, there wasn't even like a Pakistan song played over the stereo. Like there was just literally just felt like it was. You talked about it, Dylan, I think the other day, as like a show of power from the BCCI. Well, how does that happen at an international event? It's sort of a bit strange. 70 Pakistan journalists are accredited by the ICC. 2 of them got there for the game. And don't forget, this is the 3rd game that Pakistan have played, and no Pakistani journalists got their visas in time to watch the first 2 games. I mean, it's pretty messed up.
The game was very, very popular, though.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the match set the global on-demand streaming record, drawing 35 million concurrent viewers to Disney Plus and Hotstar. For reference, that's 5 times the peak streaming audience of the most recent Super Bowl, 7 million, also a record.
Yeah, phenomenal. I mean, it's hard to actually bend your mind around those numbers when you think about it. And it is why cricket has become so popular with private equity investors.
Right.
Yeah. Just bolt a little betting system on the end of it and hello, you've got a global economy. Right
now, Cricket World Cup matches to come this week. Thursday, we've got India-Bangladesh. Friday, Australia versus Pakistan. That's going to be a big game. Netherlands versus Sri Lanka on the Saturday. England versus South Africa. That's going to be another massive game. Both teams under pressure, particularly, and I suppose the English will be cursing the Netherlands for inflicting that defeat on the South Africans and getting them pumped up and ready for the match. It's the last thing they wanted to see. And then Sunday, India versus New Zealand. Ooh.
I mean, just how good. I mean, they've got this format right, haven't they? I mean, they've fluked on it, and they only have this format because the broadcasters insist on that Pakistan-India game being a definite part of a World Cup, whereas it wasn't a definite part of it when they had pools. But you just get, I mean, that's just mouth-watering, that 5 days of cricket coming up.
It really is. Yeah, sensational.
How much sleep are you actually getting, Dylan? I'm
getting so little, and you can probably tell by the way I'm just saying a little bit, you know, when I'm trying to talk.
Yeah, you strobe out.
Yeah. If I'm not drinking water, I'm drinking caffeine. It's horrendous. But I love it.
Good stuff, mate. Well, this is what you live for, isn't it? Now, the White Ferns 1-1 in the series against South Africa.
Yeah. How did they blow that last game?
Yeah. Well, South Africa 155 for 5 off their 20 and New Zealand 144 for 8. I don't know. I didn't see it. I'll be honest.
No, I only saw a package. I didn't see. I have to confess, I didn't see the whole lot. And I think Paul mentioned on the last podcast we did, it's probably the least watched series in the history of cricket because it's just
cancellation after
cancellation after cancellation, and it's shoehorned in with this festival of cricket in India. But I just looking at the scorecard and looking at the package, they really should have chased that down. They were 2 for not many.
Yes, I did see that.
So with not many required, and they just seemed there was nothing down the order of any heft to get them to what should have been a pretty gettable total.
But that's sort of been the case for some time now, and something that we've talked about previously.
They just can't win series.
Podcasts. Well, just the lack of depth in the batting. But yes, that is my bad in terms of not really seeing much of that series at all. But also, there's only so much cricket you can watch, Paul Ford.
Tell me about it. Yeah, absolutely. No, I haven't. I didn't catch much of that either. And as you say, the viewing figures probably slightly below 35 million concurrent viewers.
Yes.
It was a milestone, though, I think, and I should have noted this down, but I am fairly certain that Susie Bates has now become the highest aggregate scorer in T20 international cricket of any gender.
Correct. She passed Virat Kohli. That is correct.
There you go.
Hey, another exciting news, of course, it being spring in October in New Zealand, the Plunket Shield returns.
Oh, how good.
Yeah. And a reminder of last season's table, CD on top on 101 points, Canterbury 101 as well, ND 82, Auckland 66, Wellington 64, and Otago 53. Go on.
Surprise.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I was going to say, put the boot in. Put the boot in.
Get in
Dylan.
early. Yeah.
So that's starting up again, which is great news. Love a bit of Plunket Shield. Right now, though, it's time for Paul Ford's Cricket Violence Corner.
Paul Ford's Cricket Violence Corner.
A man has been arrested in India for allegedly threatening to bomb the cricket stadium where the much-anticipated India-Pakistan World Cup match was played. Karan Mavi, 29, from Gujarat, sent an email, allegedly, containing the threat to the BCCI in October, police said. The email in Hindi to the board read, "This time there will be a blast at the Modi Stadium in Gujarat. Be cautious on the 14th of October, and do remember that everyone's soul will be shaken." Ahmedabad City's Detection of Crime Branch arrested Mr. Mavi on Tuesday on charges of criminal intimidation. He was a cricket enthusiast trying to launch a YouTube channel, but had grown increasingly frustrated as his subscribers were not growing in the number that he wanted, and he appeared to have taken the step to gain popularity.
Wow.
Very, very ineffective, although he did get his name in the paper, so, maybe I'll check out that YouTube channel.
In the 21st century, notoriety does equal popularity, unfortunately. And there's my philosophical statement of the day.
Speaking of which, just as an aside, I was talking about those Pakistani journalists who couldn't get visas to the game. Javo got a goddamn visa. What the hell is going on?
Waiting. Great stuff. We have a news segment here, the TAB Good Punt.
Yes, we do. And for the Cricket World Cup, the BYC will be placing a $100 bonus bet on, thanks to the TAB. And this week, we're backing Rashid Khan as the top wicket taker for Afghanistan versus the Black Caps, and he's paying $4. What do you reckon, boys?
I reckon that's a bloody good punt. No,
it's going to be Mujib, but go for it.
Right, okay.
I've also got a trivia question.
Actually, are you in charge of making this? Are you making the call here, Paul Ford?
I think G Lane made it, actually, but I'm massively endorsing it.
Yes. Oh, look, I think it's a good punt, but I was just referring to the fact that on our chat you've had some shocking punts.
I was going to say, you'd right to express some caution over that. Trivia question: how many times has New Zealand played Rashid Khan in a 50-over Cricket World Cup?
I don't know. I'd be surprised if they've played them at all, actually, Jason.
Yes, so would I there. Dylan, actually, I don't know that they've ever played them in a one-day match.
Certainly haven't T20s, but...
Yes.
You guys are idiots. Can you not remember the Cricket World Cup game 2015 when Lee Hart got kicked out of the alternative commentary collective caravan and all the entire fracas, the Barbara Streisand effect for the alternative commentary collective? But Rashid Khan didn't play in that game. I can't remember why. But, we've played Afghanistan, but we haven't played him.
Yeah. Well, he's off all over the world, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
Making billions of dollars.
Just one of these guys that doesn't play ODIs anymore.
Now, listen, fellas, we have got literally a truckload of correspondence, the Toppa Correspondence of the Week.
Toppa Correspondence of the Week, brought to you by Leader NZ's Lasagna Toppa.
Who do we want to go with here? Do you want to go with Josh? Because it's a pretty substantial piece there.
It is,
and it's
but
a good one.
I'm bloody
It's a good
excited about Josh. I feel so invested in Josh's fortunes. I think we should go for Josh, and maybe I'll do because we shelved this one from last week, I'll do an abridged version of Matt O's defensive Jimmy Neesham.
Sure, okay.
How does that sound?
Yep. Hi.
So just for context, we've had a little bit of correspondence with Josh. He lives 2 doors down from me here in Karori, and he's been trying to get to the Cricket World Cup. He sent us notes about how ridiculous it was for scheduling and tickets and all sorts of shenanigans. And we had a query last week which asked, has Josh made it to the Cricket World Cup? Well, the good news is, Jace, we've heard from him.
Yeah, great stuff. And this is from Josh. Hi, Paul and the BYC team. I thought I should write to confirm that we have indeed made it to the Cricket World Cup. We arrived in Chennai last Friday morning. The schedule originally gave us a day before the game against Bangladesh, but after the BCCI changed the schedule to accommodate India versus Pakistan, we had to get straight off to the game after 20 hours of travel.
He's a trooper, our Josh.
As you can imagine, that was pretty brutal, particularly given New Zealand's methodical approach to knocking off the Bangladesh total in the second innings. Having finally got our tickets from an Adidas store 15 minutes from the ground, where two chaps were set up on the ground with a printer to distribute tickets, the tournament organisation continues to be a effing shambles. We took a tuk-tuk to the game and we were into it. Although the ground wasn't full, the atmosphere was pretty good and we found ourselves to be instant celebrities with almost all the Indian fans around us wanting a picture. One thing that slightly caught us out was the fact that the stadiums are dry, but applying some Kiwi ingenuity, we managed to get some gin in with us, and a few gin and warm lemonades kept spirits up through the evening. It was good to see another solid performance from the lads, and particularly to see a starring contribution from Lockie. Certainly from where we were sitting, it looked like he was bowling with plenty of heat. You had to feel sorry for our guys, though, as it was incredibly hot at the ground, and doing 50-odd overs in the merciless afternoon sun must have been a real battle. The batters did the job, but watching Kane retire with a hand injury was a bit of a kick in the Cajonis. We have a few days until the next game, so we're heading south to Pondicherry today. A highlight yesterday was doing an Indian cooking course with a couple of the Black Caps players' partners. We had met one of them on the plane and invited them to join us, and seeing the reaction of our hosts when they realised who they were was priceless. The locals are just as crazy about cricket as everyone says, and the amount of respect they have for our guys, and Kane in particular, is pretty cool to witness. Kane's coolness is compared by many to the great MS Dhoni, which is about the best compliment you can get. Anyway, onwards to the Afghanistan game, which after the result from yesterday could be more interesting than originally expected. It's priceless to see the filthy, cheating Aussies anchored to the bottom of the log too. Cheers from Josh.
That's brilliant, Josh. And please keep filling us in with your travel logs. And I'm very pleased you got your bins out in time last week, mate. And this one's from Matto, and we have delayed this. And it's pretty unfair on Matt, but I am going to contract this down a little bit. He says, in defence of Jimmy Neesham, and he says, we all know what an amazing short format player he is, how he can come in and get 30 runs off 15 balls. He's an expensive bowler, but he's got a golden arm neck. But he says, this may be odd given we have just started an ODI World Cup, but I'm not actually here to talk about Jimmy Neesham's short form career. Rather, I'm here to talk about his test career. I believe he should feel aggrieved for the lack of opportunities he has been given in tests. He goes on to list his stats, which are solid, but probably not compelling. But he says Blair Tickner has a first-class bowling average of 35.24. Jacob Duffy has a first-class bowling average of 33.62. Yet it is them that have been given the opportunities in tests over the past couple of years. Batting tells a similar story. Batting in the top 5 during New Zealand A's recent tour to Australia was Henry Cooper, Sean Solier, Dean Foxcroft and Robbie O'Donnell. None average over 35 in first-class cricket. Neesham's batting average of 32 is near all of them and better than Solier's. More importantly, Neesham has X-factor. He is a player in the Baz Ball mould. He could bat at 6 and change the course of a match by blazing a quick 550. He also says that he's the same age as Colin de Grandhomme at 33. He's now the same age Colin de Grandhomme was when he was given consistent opportunities in tests, and that he could easily play for another 3 or 4 years at least. This is the bit where I'm not sure Matt O is right. The only reason he has not played much first-class cricket recently is because Gary Stead has seemingly shut the door on him. I don't understand it. I am sure Neesham would gladly forego a T20 league contract to get another shot at Test cricket. This home summer, I want to see him in the Test squad. I am with you in terms of his game-breaking ability and his X-factor. I'm just not sure he's that into it now. I mean, he plays a lot of T20 cricket. He loves T20 cricket. Would he actually forgo some of those contracts for a shot at Test cricket? I'm not convinced.
That's a genuinely good question. I've been saying for quite a number of years, quite genuinely, that I was a big backer of Neesham in the Test side. Those are good numbers. He does have that X factor. He's our Green or our Marsh in many respects. You know what I mean? That in that all-rounder kind. He does have the knack of taking wickets. He can, take a game apart with the bat. I think it's been a massive opportunity lost for New Zealand and him not being in the Test side. And I've always believed he should have played. And because I think still, actually, his record in Test cricket is bloody good still. I think he's averaging like 40-odd.
3 tons.
3 tons.
At least 2 tons, probably 3.
But so I totally back Matto, but I think you make a fair point, Dylan, as to whether or not today he's as keen as he would have been, 2 or 3 years ago, Paul Ford.
Yeah, 2 tons in his first 3 bats in Test cricket. Those are the only 2. Yeah, hasn't played Test cricket since March 2017. Yeah, I had the same question. Is he even available for Test cricket? I mean, technically he hasn't retired, but yeah, if you asked him would he play, I'm not so sure. When he was dropped from the team as well, he was batting at 6. He came into the team batting 8, sort of put him up the order, really batting in that kind of Daryl Mitchell position, I guess. And that feels too high, and he didn't do himself any favours in those last few bats. In that position, made it easy to be dropped. So his scores, his last 10 scores: 15, 19, 3, a good 71 against India, 0, 7, 15, and 4. So I think, I think what we're talking about here is it does feel like players are treated inconsistently, because I think we could probably find another player that's been in and around this New Zealand team in the past few years and have a very similar record and be given chance after chance after chance and then score 100. So I also, and I feel a bit mean saying this, but I did wonder whether there were almost like some attitude issues. I think they were sort of referenced at some point during his career, and then guys have come through and they've just stuck with them. Now I don't think that's the case anymore. Maybe he just had a bit of a shitty period there for a while, but it just feels like things have conspired against him, including his own performances, some of that attitudinal stuff, and I guess other guys getting the job done.
I think you make a good point, and I was going to say that, he is quite an outspoken character, and maybe that didn't do him any favours too. He likes to say what he likes to say. So, but an interesting point, and we appreciate you bringing it up, Matto. If you want to get in touch with us, Paul Ford,
if you've got emails about James, Douglas, Sheehan, Neesham or anything else, flick us an email to byc@beigebrigade.co.nz. The email is working. Or drop into the DMs of the Alternative Commentary Collective or the Beige Brigade on Instagram or Facebook.
Great stuff, mate. Now, Dylan Cleaver, the bounce. I'm imagining, sir, that you waxed lyrical about that magnificent All Black performance against the Irish.
I think I labelled that weekend the greatest weekend of rugby I've ever seen.
Oh, South Africa, France.
Yeah.
2 outstanding quarterfinals.
And even the ones that weren't as higher quality were still damn interesting.
Yeah, Fiji, England.
Yeah. Even Wales, Argentina was really interesting. So if you want a little bit more of that sort of thing, go to dylancleaver.substat.com or just Google Dylan Cleaver in the bounce. And suddenly emails will start appearing in your inbox.
And I should say, actually, with the game tonight, there's going to be a recap with the BYC tomorrow, fellas.
Yep. Paul and I will be having a quick discussion on everything that you need to know from that game.
Great stuff. Well, thanks for taking the time to listen, and we'll be back same time next week and tomorrow.